So here it is, folks, OnePlus 13R's biggest competition. It's called the iQOO Neo 10 in China, but when it comes to India, it could be named the iQOO Neo 10 Pro. Just like how the iQOO Neo 9 was rebranded to iQOO Neo 9 Pro in India. Now, why do I call this OnePlus 13R's biggest competition? Despite the fact that OnePlus 13R is not here yet, well, we all know by now that the OnePlus 13R will have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and so will the iQOO Neo 10 Pro. And if history has to repeat itself, we also know that the Neo 10 Pro will undercut the 13R. So with all of that context setting, we've imported this from China to tell you guys what it's like using this. This is our first impressions video. A full review or detailed comparison, all of that will come later when the India launch happens. And if the India launch happens. Hi, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm Ashad. You're watching Track and Take English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Alright, so I'm going to start with the iQOO Neo 10's performance primarily because it's a performance-oriented phone. It's meant for gamers, right? So the good thing is this is going to bring Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for under 40,000 rupees, probably around the 35,000-37,000 price range. Apart from that, iQOO has also fitted an LPDDR5X RAM type and UFS 4.1 storage. But talking about UFS 4.1, we've noticed that the storage actually is behaving very weirdly in our Antutu read-write scores. Basically, we're getting lower scores than what we got with the UFS 4.0 as well. So if UFS 4.1 is not bringing faster speeds to the table, then what exactly is it doing? Anyway, we also ran benchmarks and the Antutu score is above 2 million. It is in the same ballpark range of the other Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 phones we've tested. Now, this might seem lower considering that we're getting 40% higher Antutu scores on Snapdragon 8 Elite, but 8 Gen 3 with 2 million is still pretty good for most people. The Geekbench single core and multi-core scores are also on par with most other Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 phones we've tested. Now, in our 40-thread, 30-minute test that we run on CPU throttle, we got a CPU stability of 83%, which is pretty good. Even the GPU stability was pretty good, no problem there. Now, we also played Genshin Impact for 30 minutes at highest graphics at 60 frames per second, and the average FPS was 60.4. But the problem with the phone, especially with this Neo 10 that we've been reviewing, is that it does get hot. Now, one very interesting thing that I learned recently in a conversation with a Chinese product manager inside a Chinese company is that Chinese users demand more performance. They don't really care about phones getting hot. Also, most cities in China generally have lower temperatures, so the phones can get hot and it won't get as hot as they do in India, which is possibly the reason why this is also getting hot. When it comes to India, it will be more conservative. Now, this is something we noticed with the Vivo X200 Pro as well, that, the Indian performance tuning is conservative compared to the Chinese performance tuning. So this is the reason why. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is an older chip, one generation older chip, and the Dimensity 9400 from MediaTek is a newer chip. Of course, it's going to be more powerful. Despite that, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 has better game support because the Vivo X200 that we tested, which has a Dimensity 9400, doesn't actually support BGMI at 90 FPS, which the Neo 10 does. Of course, support could be added later, but here's another very interesting thing is the fact that you can actually run the new Grid Legends game on this phone, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but not on Dimensity 9400. MediaTek really needs to pull up its socks when it comes to developer support, that's for sure. On the iQOO 10, the network performance is also fantastic. Qualcomm's 5G modem is pretty good. So what you get are support for 10 5G bands, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4, NFC, all of that is there, no problem. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, go ahead and do that right away. Yeah, I'll wait. Should I pause the video? No, you guys pause the video and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. So the iQOO Neo 10 Pro has a 6.78-inch OLED panel and it's an 80 LTPO panel. And you get a refresh rate of 1 Hz to 144 Hz, which is pretty good. But more importantly, the quality of the panel itself is pretty nice. Because what you get is a brightness of 1800 nits in HBM mode and 4500 nits of peak brightness when you're watching HDR content. Of course, that will be in a 1% window. And since this is a Chinese variant of the phone, when we were testing the phone out, YouTube HDR was supported, but Netflix wasn't. So when it comes to India, of course, you will get the certification because iQOO generally doesn't miss that. Also, another huge advantage on the display itself is the fact that you get a very good PWM dimming. By default, under say 70 nits or 100 nits, you get a PWM dimming of 4320 Hz. And even at higher brightness levels, even at peak 100% brightness, you can get a PWM dimming of 2500 Hz. Now, this is something that a lot of brands don't signify in their, marketing material because most of the PWM dimming will happen only at the lower brightness levels and not at the higher brightness ones. So across the stack, if you're getting such good PWM dimming, which means that low light flicker is definitely not going to be a problem, and even bright light flicker is not going to be a problem, which is fantastic. Apart from that, you also get an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner now, which is the norm of 2025 phones, which is very, very good. But the biggest concern with the display is that we don't know what kind of glass protection is there on this phone. But this is the Chinese variant of the phone. When the Indian variant comes out, we might get an idea of maybe it has short sensation alpha or something like that. We'll have to wait and watch for it. You also get a stereo speaker setup where one is a speaker grill and the other one's the earpiece, and it's fair enough. It's okay. It's not too bad. Take a listen to it for yourself and let me know what you guys think. If you ask me, the design looks-wise definitely has been upgraded. But I'm slightly disappointed because there are some clear corner cuttings that have happened here. Firstly, you do not get any patent leather back like you did with the iQOO Neo 9 Pro. It's all plastic, including the frame. Also, you get a USB Type-C 2.0 port. I've said this multiple times before. Any phone that costs upwards of 30,000 rupees should have USB 3.0. It's unpardonable that this phone doesn't have it. The other thing is, we do not know for a fact if this has any sort of IP rating. Even IP54 is there or not, I'm not so sure of it. But overall, if you look at it, I like the design of this one with the consolidated camera module. It looks very similar to the iQOO Neo 9 Pro, but upgraded and looks nice. I like it. Now, talking about the software on this phone, it is the Chinese variant of the iQOO Neo 10, so we get Origin OS. But I've used a little bit of Origin OS, and trust me, the features, the kits that you get with it, all of that feels a lot more modern than FunTouch OS. See, FunTouch OS 15 has improved by leaps and bounds, and it's at a much better place now, but there's still some room for it to get to a premium looking, premium feeling sort of software experience, which actually Origin OS does give. I sincerely hope that Vivo and iQOO phones can get this soon. But yeah, I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch because we know how that goes. The other good thing about the iQOO Neo 10 or the Neo 10 Pro when it comes to India is the fact that it has a 6100 mAh battery inside. But like the iQOO 13, when it comes to India, it could come with a 6000 mAh battery instead because of regulations, of course. Regardless, you'll see that it's actually slim for a 6000 mAh battery phone or 6100 mAh battery phone. And the reason for that is the fact that it has a silicon carbide battery. And of course, that new tech is fantastic primarily because it can be denser without taking too much space and give you more capacity regardless. And you also get 120 watt charging with the phone with the charger inside the box. And interesting thing that I noticed is that in China, you get the charger, which is a USB PD charger. The GAN charger is small and you get a Type-C to Type-C cable as well, which means that it is actually going to be compatible with a lot of other devices. In fact, it has support for 100 watt PPS as well. Now, battery life we haven't tested extensively, but considering how FunTouch is tuned and the fantastic battery life that I'm constantly getting on the X200 Pro, I think that the iQOO Neo 10 Pro will definitely have great battery life. Now, the 13R is expected to get a 2x telephoto camera, but the iQOO Neo 10 Pro still doesn't have any telephoto. The primary camera is a good sensor. It's the 50MP Sony IMX921 with optical image stabilization. The secondary one is an 8MP ultra wide. They could have given a higher resolution sensor if you ask me. And on the front, you get a 16MP selfie camera. Now, I haven't tested out the cameras extensively. We've shot a few pictures here and there just to see how it performs. And generally what we noticed are that, the primary camera captures a lot of good details, that's for sure. The HDR performance generally with iQOO and Vivo phones is fantastic, so that's good too. The skin tones are definitely brightened. That's mainly because this is the Chinese variant. When it comes to India, they do tune it specifically for India, so it won't be as brightened. The portrait mode also looks good. But what I was very, very happy with was the low light performance of the camera itself. The primary camera captures excellent low light shots. Just take a look at it for yourself. The ultra wide is an 8MP ultra wide. It's pretty average. It's not that great. Also, it can only shoot 1080p 30fps videos. So keep that in mind. Talking about which, even the 16MP selfie camera can only shoot 1080p 30fps videos. I'm really itching to see what video capability the OnePlus 13R has. But the selfies captured from the front camera, they actually do look good. I liked it. And finally, the primary camera can shoot 8K videos as well, which is nice, but I don't know how many people actually shoot 8K videos, but the fact that you get 4K 60 FPS with stabilization is nice. So overall, if you look at it, my first impressions of the camera are pretty good. It does perform well, but we'll definitely do a detailed testing later. Alright, so the iQOO Neo 10 Pro is definitely going to give the OnePlus 13R a tough competition, that's for sure. But I'm really excited to see what kind of changes is going to come to the OnePlus 13R and if it can actually beat the iQOO Neo 10 Pro. And for that, you'll have to wait for the India launch of both of these phones and we'll definitely do a comparison then. Alright, what did you guys think of the iQOO Neo 10 Pro or the Neo 10 in China? Let me know in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.